the movie's in post-production. We're about to roll out to festival land. It's a unique film from all the other independent films I've been looking at. You got a lot of comedy, you've always got a lot of horror, and family dramas. I haven't seen anything yet about the pandemic and the George Floyd protests, or basically the entire nightmare that was 2020. So to do something to do a movie about such a time, like virtually as it's happening, is unique. What's your major hope for this film once it goes out into festival world and people finally get a chance to see this picture? And not only that, but just an incredibly diverse picture without being pandering, which I very much appreciated.
Yeah, I think, I guess my style of storytelling, or I have to be really connected to what I'm writing. I have to be really like deep in, and I can't really just personally. It's probably, I don't know, maybe it's a weakness, but I can't get up for something I'm not all in.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling very well. Oh yeah.
You don't want to be faking it.
No,
I mean,
no, you can't.
I mean, there are some people just make movies for money or for fame or something. I don't think that's not really my style. I think I'm kind of more connected to like the 70s sort of style of filmmaking.
My favorite time. My favorite time of filmmaking.
I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore!
I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take it anymore!
I'm mad as hell and
I'm not gonna take it anymore!
Me too, man. Seriously. And I'm writing a script about it right now, but that's another story.
I can't wait.
But I think they used to say something back in the 70s. If you talk to like Dennis Hopper, or you talk to like, Paul Newman or even McQueen, like some of those guys, they were always interested in how their movies reflected the times that they lived in. And like as sort of part of, part and parcel to like what the artist does. And so, maybe that's a pro or a con to my mentality, but that's in there. That's baked in with me. I want to speak to the moment. I want to speak to the times without exactly like what you said, without being without being, without being pandemic, without being demeaning.
Yeah, pandering.
Without being, my goal is to never, I hate preachy movies.
Oh yeah, me too. And that was the thing. I was very worried when I first saw the material, and when I finally saw the film, I was like, oh, this is wonderfully not preachy. Nobody likes preachy. No one really wants to be told what their morality is.
Exactly. Best compliment I've gotten. Thank you.
No, not at all.
So to me, it has to be endemic. It has to be whatever the ideas are, whatever the connection to, the mirror to the culture is, it has to be embedded in the story. So if you start getting high-minded, or you start, over intellectualizing things, or you try to say something, right? I mean, there are topics, there are all kinds of things here I want to discuss. They're all but I don't want it to be put in that sort of like that box. I don't like boxes, I don't like categories. I don't like any of that stuff. That's why, when I'm making one of my stories, I want to make sure we have all the genres. Like, in other words, I want some comedy. I want some, I want some farce. I want some deep emotional drama. I think that's the way life is. And so I'm always trying to get a story that actually says something about life without saying this is what life is about.
Yes, right? Exactly. Yeah, those movies are like pulling teeth with a table fork.
Oh yeah.
I always think that when you're a writer, you should basically have total freedom to write. So, if you're a man writing about a woman, then I mean, the pressure is on you to write it well. How did you approach, or how do you feel about writing so many diverse characters? Because I'm pretty sure the only Caucasian character in your movie is Ethan Cole, right?
I mean, not the only, but yeah, he's in the minority, we could say.
Yeah, ironically enough. So
Yeah.
you've got all these persons of color in your film. What do you think about writing for persons of color, or even more importantly, also, how did your actors respond to the characters and dialogue that you made for them?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the idea of sort of a man writing for a woman, or a white guy writing for a black character or an Asian character. My approach is sort of, once again, I guess it would be old school. But I would just say this: I think that the goal, and even like the responsibility, if that's the right word to use, of somebody who is an artist, is to close your eyes, close your whatever socialized part of yourself, whatever constructed part of yourself, whether you're male or you're female or you're white or you're black. I don't write from that place. I don't write as a white man. I don't write as a male. I feel like if I am writing correctly, I'm writing for the place. And this is kind of like, connected to the whole Moon Students theme, which is that I'm writing to a place of, from the standpoint of a human being. I think, that's that a lot of the other divisions that we've set up, I always think of this term constructed, right? Those are not things I think, I don't know, in some ways I don't even believe in them. I don't believe in a lot of the constructs that we've set up. This idea, the versus deal, right? I think if you're an artist, that you should, just like you said, you should have the ability to access any part of human nature. Because my North Star, if you will, is always the human condition.
Writing from the human condition.
Yeah, I think it's universal. And again, I don't know if that's in style or out of style, but I don't categorize myself that way. And I also, if you want to talk about dealing with actors, I don't deal with actors that way. I deal with actors who are human beings. And we're all human beings, and that means we're all, on some level, we're all on the same page. I think it's just this culture, sometimes that makes us believe differently. I personally, individually, don't believe that. I don't believe in all the separations and divisions and categories that are so often used to try to set people apart. And so, I mean, if there was a character in the movie, I mean, that was most like me, I would say all of them.
Oh,
But
that's
I would say
interesting.
I would say probably DeAndre is probably, the closest to me. And people would go, "Oh, what are you talking about? He's a African American." And to me, that's not how I see the character. I see DeAndre as, as a philosopher, as a deep night thinker, as somebody who's a creative and trying to find his way in the world. Those are all things I can totally relate to. So why can't I write the DeAndre? I don't see any reason.
How did your actor? How did your actors respond to your material? Did they make any comments about that? Or did they just dive in and like it?
I'm trying to remember if there was any comments about it. Maybe in the first rehearsal. So we had two rehearsals, which were so, I mean, just perfect. They set up the entire, obviously we couldn't rehearse every scene, but I kind of, I wanted to make sure we touched on about 10 really essential scenes. And those 2 days, I mean, if they had gone badly, the movie would have gone badly, is my feeling. But everybody coalesced. Everybody was on the same page. We chatted about the race issues, but not in any kind of a way where it was like, "Hey, can't you?" That's not something, that was ever even part of the equation. Part of the equation was, this is a movie about, about the the part of us that's all the same.
Yeah,
This
the movie is largely about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think maybe we talked about this one time, and you said, well, what do you say to people who, you know, say, oh, you're a white director directing all, and I say my answer is the film. That's literally the theme.
You know, how the hell did you come up with the term moon student? Where did that come from?
The idea, I mean, when I actually, after the protests happened,
Oh,
and
yeah?
the theme of the movie became really sort of embedded in my mind. Most of the movie, to me, as I was finishing off the last third or the last half of the movie, was about perspective. And I think I mentioned, you know, in one of the things I've written about it, that I was thinking about Langston Hughes. I don't know why, but there's this great poem by Langston Hughes, you know, the great poet from the Harlem Renaissance. And there's a great poem called Let America Be America Again. And it has this sort of like bombastic white character, which is very similar to Ethan Cole. And he starts sort of trumpeting these very, you know, that we'll call them these some patriotic, fervorous stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But over the course of the poem, in parentheses, these other voices start to encroach. And they get louder and louder and louder. And so I wanted Moon Students to be sort of similar. That's the structure of Moon Students. It starts off as Ethan Cole's story, but by the end, it really is Lita's story.
That's right.
And so their voices sort of surmount his. And so when I'm thinking about Moon Students, to me, Moon Students is a change of perspective, you know? And I started, it came from Lita, really. Like Lita invented it. I really didn't. It really did. It came from her character because, you know, obviously her connection with the moon and the idea, again, just to go back to this sort of, you know, the definition of the term Moon Students, to me anyway, which is about the concept that, you know, you, especially after a tragedy, you know, and we've all been through, like, you know, just via living in this world. We're all very, very familiar with, you know, dark places where we get checked, where we have to sit down, where we get pushed down. And to me, the idea of a Moon Student is somebody who doesn't let that shove, doesn't let that setback, they don't let it close them down. That's the problem with Ethan Cole. Ethan Cole endured, you know, a sit down. He endured a major tragic moment, and he allowed it, you know, because anger does that to us. I think, you know, it pulls us in, and we get into this. I was talking about this afternoon. We get into that sort of like the stereotypical version of, like, you know, American individualism, which in some ways is so narrow. Yeah. Right. And it says,
very much so.
Yeah. And so a Moon Student is somebody who breaks that open.
Bam! I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push a mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way.
Did you hear a word I just said?
How long do you think she's gonna let someone like you drag her down?
Not by myself.
And what is he teaching now, huh? Let me guess, what is he doing? What's the word? How to be what?
Mr. Cole.
What do you say about that?
Stop, don't talk like that, man. This is life!
I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind, I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
Just like her!
Wow. Are you a Moon Student?